Alright, welcome to the Stampscapes Replay from a live stream earlier tonight. Right here I am stamping out the tree trunk ArtFoamies version, the very large 9-inch tall stamps. And that's providing a nice framing for this composition. I'm going to be using one of the new Nature Set number 30 figures in this scene. And I wanted her to be dancing amongst the giant redwoods, I guess we could say. Alright, so we have 3 images in there and we need to give them a foundation, so we're using the Sedge Filler stamp. It's a grass texture stamp and adding that texture amongst the trees, and I'm doing it in a dark brown. The trees were stamped out in black, dye-based ink, and this scene is composed on a 7.5 by 10-inch piece of glossy cardstock. Okay, we're going in now after we have our scene established, and we are going in with a light tan color. It's called Peach Bellini dye-based ink, and we're working through incrementally darker colors, and not only coloring, but we're kind of shading and establishing our lighting scheme at the same time. And how you establish a lighting scheme is you retain some of the lighter areas of the page, so don't color in everything completely uniformly, and you'll establish some lighter areas within objects and areas, and that will represent your light. So you can see on the inner sides of these trees, I'm retaining some of that white of the paper, or just the lighter area. I'm going to go in and fill that in because I don't want the trees to be white, but I'm retaining that lighter area. Adding a richer tone to it now, going in with the green. I wanted that kind of the forest floor to be green, but if you just do it only on the grass, it doesn't have as much of a relationship to the trees, so I added some of that green into the trees just as I added brown down into the grassy area. But what we'll do is we'll follow suit with the according colors in the mid-tones and darker tones, so that we don't have, green trees and just brown grass. When you get into your darker tones, you kind of focus those objects in those specific colors, the different colors. But you can have a nice foundation coat with universal tones, okay? So we still see these trees are still a little bit green here. So I'll start using more dark brown right over the top of that green. But that green is kind of influencing the overall color scheme in there. All right, we have our little subject matter in there, our little dancer, and then with a much finer kind of detailed tool here, going in and adding in some extra tone, very pale tones into those tree trunks, and I'm adding that lighter portion of the tree with that. Going into the dancer here, well, below the dancer, so that she's casting a shadow, and I'm doing that with the alcohol pens. A lot easier to do that than the wadded up paper towel that I was using to color the overall. And she's wearing a kind of a white light dress. I figured the white one looks, it's going to be the best in the, the sunlight. But you don't want to leave it just stark white, so you want to color it in a little bit. Okay, this is where we start adding in some kind of crisp highlights in the form of these little maybe bluebell flowers or something like that, wildflowers on the forest floor. And we'll use different shades of blue and white for these flowers down here. And what you do is you kind of cluster these flowers around. You don't want to space them out perfectly even. It looks a little bit better to have them clustered, and I'll show you what I do here on this little dark piece of paper, so that I was showing people in the live stream so that they could see it easier. So you kind of cluster them, and then you kind of taper it off with fewer dots as it moves away from that cluster. Okay, crepuscular rays emanating from that, a little bit above the horizon line. I wanted to have kind of a lower light source in this scene. I don't know, for something different. I usually have it a little bit higher, but I wanted to do it a little bit closer and lower to the composition coming up from behind our dancer. Alright, now one of the things that you can see with my rays is that I don't do them uniformly. Some rays are a little bit wider, some are lighter with, using more white pigment ink, and some I kind of taper off before it goes off the edge of the page, so you can see the differences in size of those rays. Okay, now the beams kind of look weird if you don't kind of soften up some other elements within the scene. So I'm adding in kind of this low-lying mist at the base of the tree trunks, adding some up into the clouds. And you can put some on some of the sides of the tree trunks that are facing the light. And what that does is it kind of puts this kind of representation of mist in the air, and that's what those, the light beams are kind of being created from. And I like these little lens flare types of things. If you aim a camera directly at the sun or a light source, oftentimes you get these little light flares. So that's what these kind of represent to me. Or they could be little magical orbs or something like that. I just feel that these figures are kind of real dreamy looking. And I like these little extra elements of kind of magic. Going in with the ArtFoamies larger kind of reeds than I have in rubber form, adding those into the foreground, which provides a little bit of framing, plus it kind of adds a crisp element next to something soft in that white pigment ink. Adding framing on the top with the ArtFoamies Stampscapes Leaves stamp, and that's providing some framing and extra depth in that upper area. Doing it on both sides, but not doing it completely uniformly, just to create a little bit of variation. Adding in some extra little highlights on those leaves and foreground elements. I didn't do too much because I wanted it to be fairly subtle, but I wanted those leaves and foreground elements to stand out from the background a touch. And there you have it. That is the end result right there of this scene. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching.